Hey everyone, Pete Calandra here. This is the second installment of a lesson I'm doing on secondary sevenths. A link for the first lesson is down in the description box below. In the first video, we defined what a secondary seventh was, so we're not going to go over that again. We're just going over alternate ways to get this material into your hands, and the way that you do that, as I said in the first video, is by spending 10, 15, 20 minutes, 4, 5, 6 times a week doing targeted, focused practice. Today, we're going to work on secondary sevenths in close position by intervals. This lesson assumes that you know what close position is, and it also assumes that you know your scale tones and your basic intervals. If we just do this stepwise parallel, and we look at the top example here, we get something that sounds like this. So that is a secondary seventh chord built on every scale degree of the C major scale. In addition to some of the drills that we went over last week, you can also practice these in a scale fashion like this. So you're moving up in steps. So it's either a whole step or a half step, depending upon the scale degree. C major seventh, up a whole step to D minor seventh, another whole step to E minor seventh, a half step to F major seventh, a whole step to G7, a whole step to A minor 7, a whole step to B half diminished seventh, and then a half step to the top. And that configuration or pattern of whole step and half step holds true in every key. So if I were to play this in A major, E flat, so you should be able to do this in all 12 keys with both hands, with your right hand and with your left hand. So if I were to do this an octave lower with my left hand, so once you get that down all in root position, then just go through the inversions. So I'll just play through these. This one is in first inversion, this one's in second inversion, this one's in third inversion, and these are all scale. Right? All parallel motion, just going up the scale. Every tone in every chord is the next tone higher in the scale from the previous chord. And again, make up little games, right? I'll play them a few different ways and you'll see what I mean. On that last little melodic phrase, when I was descending, and you should practice these both ascending and descending for all of this material. I started on the second note from the top in the chord. So if I started on this chord and I go backwards, I'm playing B, C, G, and E. Then A, B, F, and D. And that's also nice because that works your fourth and fifth fingers. It's really great. You work on these, you do them in all 12 keys, and a good strategy for this, on your first day, if you're going to practice 20 minutes, spend 10 minutes with each hand, and you'll do C major, and you'll do F major and B flat major your first day with each hand, and you do that a couple days in a row until you feel comfortable with it. Then you move on to E flat, A flat, and D flat, and do some reviewing of the first 3 keys, and just make your way through it. You know, take a month, learn it in root position, then move to first inversion, same thing, second inversion, third inversion. And just the only way you learn these things is by drilling them. The more you do it, the easier the new material is to assimilate, because you get used to all the scale patterns and everything. And it just really does work that way. Now, another thing that you can do, and this gets a little bit trickier, and this is a little bit really interesting as far as I'm concerned, is that you can use stepwise motion where you're maintaining the common tone between two chords. So in this case, I'm going from C major seventh to B half diminished seventh to A minor seventh to G7 to F major seventh, E minor seventh, D minor seventh, and C major seventh. And here, where the scale is descending, the chords are going up. So in other words, you're going from C major seventh to D minor seventh to E minor seventh, F major seventh, G seventh, A minor seventh, B half diminished seventh, and C major seventh. So in other words, your bottom note of these chords is ascending up the C major scale. And then when you're descending, the top note is going down the C major scale, starting on the seventh, down to there. Another way to think about this is that these are 4-note chords. And in 4-note writing, when you go to a music school, they assign each voice of the 4 parts as if you were writing for a choir. So it's the top note is the soprano, the second note from the top is the alto, the third note from the top is the tenor, and the bottom note is the bass. What you want to think about here is what kind of pattern can you come up with here that can help you to navigate this, especially once you start to go to more difficult keys. Okay, so your first chord is C major seventh, and your second chord is B half diminished seventh. So between those two chords, the soprano voice stays the same. So if I were going to do this in, let's say, G major seventh to F sharp half diminished seventh, the soprano voice stays the same, and the other 3 notes go up stepwise in the key. Very simple. D flat. The C stays the same in the D flat major seventh, and then the common tone between a D flat major seventh and a C half diminished chord is the C, which will be in the soprano voice between the two chords. Now, so the first note, soprano, is common, and the other notes move stepwise in the key. Between the second chord and the third chord, that's the B half diminished seventh and the A minor seventh, the alto voice is the common tone, the A. Between the third chord and the fourth chord, the tenor voice is the same. Right? And now between the G7 and the F major seventh, the bass voice is the same. And at this point, the pattern repeats. So between F and E minor, soprano. Between E minor seventh and D minor seventh, the alto. Between D minor seventh and C major seventh, the tenor. Right? So soprano, alto, right? Tenor, bass. Sorry. Then soprano, alto, tenor. In the reverse, when you're going down from C major seventh, D minor seventh, and these are all different inversions, right? E minor seventh, F major seventh, G seventh, A minor seventh, B half diminished seventh, and C major seventh. You flip the order of the common tones. The bass voice is the same between the C major seventh and the D minor seventh. Between the D minor seventh and the E minor seventh, the tenor is the same. Between the E minor seventh and the F major seventh, the alto voice is the same. And between the F major seventh and the G seventh, the soprano voice is the same. And then you're back to the bass between the G seventh and the A minor seventh, the tenor, which is the A between the A minor seventh and the B half diminished seventh, and then the alto between the B half diminished seventh and the C major seventh. And with all of these, right, these are all the inversions of this pattern, you'll find the same pattern holds true. With this version, you start with the alto. With this version, you start with the soprano. So you just look at the notes. So And then this one here at measure 33, it's the second inversion of the first chord. And then finally, the third inversion. And what you'll find is if you play these 4 lines here, you'll play every chord in every inversion at some point during that series. So that's pretty cool. And that brings us to the end of this chapter. On the next video, we'll be taking a look at moving these chords, these secondary 7th chords, around by interval. If you like this video, give a thumbs up. For more content, please subscribe, and to be notified, ring that bell. There's a link down in the description box for the PDF. There's also a link if you want to support the channel. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Please leave any comments or questions down below. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Pete Calandra, and I'll catch you on the next one.